What's up, guys? This is the Honest Outlaw here, and today we're going to be doing the 1,000 round review of the PTR 9CT, or as I like to call it, the American-made MP5. Before we do that, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. It's because of you guys I have guns like this and ammunition to feed them. This gun was purchased with Patreon dollars, and I appreciate that. If you want to support the channel, all you got to do is go to the link in the description and sign up to Patreon. Some exclusive content over there if you want to go over and check it out. Also in the description is a link to a local shelter, the YSS in Ames, Iowa. It's near and dear to my heart, and I would really appreciate it if you would go over and donate a couple of bucks to those kids, because they could really use your help. Now, the PTR 9CT is essentially a clone of an MP5. And if you're unfamiliar with the MP5, don't worry. We'll go through all the specs here real quick, the pros and cons, how this kind of compares to the MP5 and to some other PCCs, and if this is right for you and what you're looking for. We'll get into some of the specs here real quick, and then we'll go over what I think of the gun and what to use it for. The overall length is 17.6 inches, excluding the end cap and brace system. The overall weight is advertised at 5.5 pounds. However, on my scale, it's actually 7.5 pounds. It's a little bit heftier than it actually appears, and that's because it's got all metal construction, of course, not a lot of polymer use in it except for the lower portion right here. And again, MP5s, the HK MP5 is also a little heavier than advertised, so just be aware of that when you are looking at it. It's got a roller delayed blowback system, and if you're unfamiliar with the MP5, SP5K, they run a roller delayed system that allows you to have a lot less recoil while still maintaining an extremely reliable system overall, and that is pretty unique to the MP5 clones. It's running 9mm 30 round magazines, as you can see right here. But you can get any type of aftermarket magazine for these that you want, including the ETS mags, the polymer mags. You can even get 10 round mags to make them state compliant. Sugar pull on it is god awful. 9.5 to 10 pounds. On my scale it was 10 pounds, but the advertised is 9 pounds, so yours might be closer or further from that, depending on what particular gun you get. Now, what would you use something like this for? Well, a 9mm carbine can be used for a lot of things. Most people think that they are useless because they are ballistically inferior to something like a 5.56. However, I would have to disagree. They're a niche gun for sure, but a niche that I think fits a lot of fun and practical uses. First being that it would be really good for apartment defense or anything where you had to be concerned with over penetration. 5.56 can penetrate less or more than 9mm depending on what 9mm or 5.56 that you choose. So again, be aware of that. It's also going to be less noise indoors, particularly with a suppressor. You're going to have very low noise. I shot this with 147 grain, I think Hush ammo with my Omega 9K, and it was very, very quiet. But even not suppressed, it's still going to be a lot quieter than, let's say, a 10.5 or an 8.5 5.56. That's going to be extremely loud by comparison to this. So remember that this is going to be a lot quieter and a lot easier to shoot, a little less blast, especially around structures. Another good use for it is that it's just cheaper to shoot than a 5.56 rifle, or especially 7.62. So you're going to get a lot more training value out of this. Plus you can shoot steel close range, which makes it a lot more fun, and you get that fun plinking noise and all that. You can shoot up to 10 yards with this, whereas like again a 5.56 and Mark 18, something like that, you're going to be minimum 50 yards. So if you like to shoot steel, 9mm is where it's at. Now the con is obviously going to be range and accuracy, but we're going to be getting into that a little bit later. We'll get into the most important category here that I consider for pistol caliber carbines, and that is going to be reliability. Was the PTR as reliable as the MP5? Well, for those of you that know, I've shot plenty of real MP5s. I have an SP5K, and I have thousands of rounds through those, and they're extremely reliable. The PTR went 1,000 rounds with one malfunction. Now that one malfunction was with the polymer magazines, which are well known to be unreliable. They have caused issues in lots of the other MP5 and MP5 clones, so I'm not going to really count that, and I'm going to consider this 100% reliable. The reason why I say that is because my buddy Nick also owns one of these, and he has thousands of rounds through it with zero malfunctions. We even shot 500 rounds with one of his, and it had zero malfunctions the whole time. So as far as I'm concerned, the PTR is extremely reliable with varying types of ammunition. As long as you are using the steel German mags, I see no reason to worry whatsoever. However, if you get into some of the cheap polymer magazines, well, then you can have some issues. But magazines are just as important as the rifle or pistol, so you have to remember that you will affect reliability if you switch magazines, especially going the cheaper route. Now, accuracy. Now, you're going to lose some accuracy with this over something like, again, a 10.5, 11.5, 5.56 gun or something like that. However, it is still more accurate, or at least as accurate as any other pistol caliber carbine I've fired. 6-inch groups at 100 yards with no issue. We got plenty of hits at around 300 or so. We did take this out to, not this one, but we took Nick's out to 500 yards, and we shot something like 100 rounds at a steel target of 500 yards, and we hit nothing but air. You would think at that distance we would manage to hit one by accident, but you'd be wrong. Now, you got to remember at 500 yards, the drop on a 9mm, I think when we were getting close, it was around a berm higher, so maybe 30 feet above the target, something like that. Quite the drop at 500 yards with the 9mm. Now, at 300 yards, you're about a target above, so it's more than manageable. I've even gotten hits with a 9mm pistol at 300 yards, so I would consider this worst case scenario. You could take this to 300 yards, but I would consider it ballistically capable at around 100. So if you're looking at something like a pistol caliber carbine, remember, range dependent, you're looking at 0 to 100 yards, but for a civilian, that includes almost every engagement in history. So 100 yards, you're going to be good to go if you're a civilian. Now, if you're law enforcement, military, you're mission dependent, equipment may vary. This might not have enough punch and enough range for you guys. Now we'll get into some of the ergonomics here, and we're going to talk about how some of the ergos are a little bit better than the SP5. However, some of them are still not good enough to compete with maybe something like a CMMG Banshee or something AR styled. So we'll go from front to back here, and we'll talk about the muzzle device first. So the muzzle device on it is threaded for a 1/2 by 28, so you're going to be able to put whatever muzzle device that you want on there. Behind that, you actually have the tri-lug system, which is my personal favorite suppressor system, and that actually is what I have on all of my 9mm carbines, so I can QD off my suppressor whenever I like. Big ups to the tri-lug system. That works extremely well. We have the hooded front sight here, classic HK style, with the complete enclosure of the front sight, protecting it from any dents or anything like that, bending it while you're dropping it or anything. So big fan of that, plus it offers a pretty awesome sight picture. And one of the advantages you'll get with this over an SP5 is going to be the M-LOK rail right out of the box, the ability to add, grips, hand stops to stop your hand from getting in front of the gun, weapon lights, lasers, whatever you want to add. If you want to get into the 21st century, M-LOK, or at the very least a Picatinny rail would have been nice, but the rails actually switch really easy. So it's a push pin there, and I think this one actually has an Allen key instead of a push pin like the standard SP5K that I have. However, still really easy to remove, and you have the ability to add accessories there as you like. Coming back here, we'll skip the charging handle for now, and we'll get to the included Picatinny rail welded on the top cover there. One of the real shitty things about the SP5K or the SP5 series is that even though it's extremely expensive, it still doesn't come with the ability to mount optics, and then you have to buy these claw mounts that fit into here. Downside to the claw mount, they fit so far forward that a lot of times when you're racking the charging handle, you're busting up your knuckles, smoking your fingers, that kind of thing. With the PTR, you won't have that because it's way out of the way back here, so every time you run the charging handle, there's nothing getting in the way of you running that guy. And on an MP5 style gun, you run the charging handle a lot more than you would on an AR style gun or any of the more modern guns, because as far as the reloading process goes, you have no lockback. So when you load the magazine in, you rack the charging handle, you're good to go. When you run dry, you have to pull the magazine out, rack the charging handle up, and then reinsert a new mag. So you have to remember, with the battery of arms and the reload system on this gun, it's going to be a little bit slower than an AR, but it is going to be a little bit better than the actual SP5K because the rail isn't going to be in the way. So pros and cons there. It comes with the paddle mag release, which is nice. Comes with a polymer lower, which does reduce a little bit of weight. and it does have the safety selector, the classic HK safety selector, and the classic HK really shitty trigger. Something like I said, 9 or 10 pounds on that is going to be noticeable compared to your standard AR style guns. Something like the CMMG Banshee, you can even drop in a Geisley and have like a 2.5 pound trigger. And even though they're both 9mm guns, the Banshee is going to be a lot more accurate to the user because you don't have to worry about this trigger. Now, there are aftermarket triggers for these as well, but none of them are going to get you down to something like a precision AR trigger. You can drop in all kinds of fun stuff. They are SEER compatible, so if you want to drop in a fun switch, you absolutely can do that with the PTR. Now, the rear cover here is, when I got the gun, it was just flat, but it's easy. You just pop the pin out, and I put on my SP Tactical brace, and that way you can have it, well, you can have it come all the way off if you're a dipshit, or you can have it collapse in if you want, or you can pull it out to where whatever length of pull that you desire, it has 3 settings. So that makes it easily concealable. And the thing I like about collapsing stocks versus folding stocks is if you do collapse it all the way, brace, sorry, not a stock, brace. And if you fold it all the way there, you don't have any annoying shit along the side. It stays streamlined. So I personally like collapsible versions. However, the downside to the collapsible version is that the cheek weld on the gun is not going to be nearly as comfortable as maybe a folding system. However, the nice thing with the PTR is that you can put in any brace system that would go with an MP5, and even including buffer systems, so you can get whatever aftermarket brace or stock offering that you like. We also have the drum safety up here, or the drum rear sight, which a lot of people really like and is always raved about. However, I could really give or take them. I mean, let's be clear, it's just a drum with a bunch of holes drilled in it, and that's fine. It works really well. However, I'm an optics dude, and we did run this iron sighted quite a few times, and it does work better than the K version. However, for me personally, I had a QD mounted Trijicon RMR that worked fantastic. So that's good to go. And you can do that with the included Picatinny rail on top, which is nice. So now we'll get into some pros and cons of the gun, and then I'll tell you what I think about it right at the end. So the first pro is it's a lot cheaper than an SP5K, a standard H&K, and it's actually cheaper than a lot of the clones that you can get like from Zenith and stuff like that. And the real upside to me personally is that it's available. So not only is it cheaper, but it's available. I don't remember the last time I ever walked into a gun store and saw an H&K or even a Zenith just sitting around. I got this at my local store, and it was just up on the wall with like 3 or 4 other ones. I've also seen these in several other gun stores as well, so they are available, and they are relatively affordable for the H&K clone genre, of course. Now you got to remember that real versions of these go for somewhere in the area of $2,700 all the way up to $5,000 to even $7,000 to even $10,000. So this comes in at around $1,700, and that seems like a lot, but it is not a lot by comparison to its peers. Now, it is more than a lot of pistol caliber carbines, which I would consider maybe not better, but have better ergonomics. Like, I mean, you look at something like the CMMG Banshee or the, the FX, the F9X or something like that I reviewed a couple of years ago. Those guns are coming in under $1,000 or under $1,500, and they have a superior ergonomics to this gun. You can even look at the FSR EP9, which is still running around $500, which is just as reliable, maybe not as durable, but just as reliable, and it's coming in around $500. So a lot cheaper options out there, but they don't look like an MP5. Now, some pros over the SP5 again is it does come optics ready right out of the box, and it does come with the M-LOK rail right out of the box as well, along with the 1/2x28 and the tri-lug system. So other than, I mean, you can get braced ones right out of the box as well. So other than an optic, you pretty much have everything you need right out of the box, and that's nice because most people don't want to buy a product and then go put a bunch of stuff on it. Another pro is how unbelievably shootable the PTR is. So that was one thing we talked about a little bit with the low recoil, but the main benefit other than the looks is going to be the shootability. The roller delayed system has so low recoil that it makes a 9mm actually function like a 9mm should. If you shoot any blowback operated guns, you're going to find out that the 9mm blowback operated guns have about the same recoil or more recoil than a 5.56 gun does, and that kind of defeats the purpose of having a 9mm in the first place. So if you run something with a roller delayed system, for example, or a delayed system that's in the Banshee or the MPX from SIG, you'll actually get a relatively low recoiling 9mm 9mm that's very pleasant to shoot on the shoulder, and it doesn't have as much blast as an actual rifle. So overall, it's a really good gun for beginners, new shooters, and just people who just want to have fun at the range. It is an unbelievably fun gun to shoot. You can shoot it very fast, and the shooting experience is one of the better ones you'll ever have. If you have ever shot an MP5, SP5, or even the PTR, you'll know what I'm talking about. Now, some of the cons are going to be, it's inferior ballistically, of course. It is a little heavier than it really should be, especially for a 9mm, coming in at like 7.5 pounds on my scale. And obviously the price is going to be a factor as well. Coming in around $2,000 for a 9mm carbine would probably make most people slam on the brakes right away. So it has to be a gun that you really enjoy and like to look at, and also are going to want to shoot a lot. So for what it is, the PTR 9CT definitely defeats the competition, but it's still so pricey that it's going to price itself out for a lot of people. However, if you're in the market for one of these, or if you've seen these on Call of Duty or Die Hard or whatever, and you want to get into an entry-level MP5 style gun, in my opinion, this is the best way to go. It's available, it's reliable, it's accurate, it comes with extra features, and overall, how unbelievably cool does this gun look? I mean, I'm a bit of an MP5 fanboy, and I gotta tell you, one of the coolest guns ever made, and it functions equally as awesome, so it's hard to say no to it. However, if you don't have the cash, I get it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Please help out your local homeless shelters, and remember to recycle. I'll check you later.
That motion?
It could be that. Oh boy. So make sure it's seated, yep. And then slap that charging handle down.